Former President Donald Trump is in the air on his way from South Florida to New York City.
The former president will have his arraignment hearing tomorrow. A source familiar with the grand jury indictment handed down last week told CBS News Trump will likely be charged with falsifying business records in the first degree. That is a felony that stems from hush money paid to adult film star Stormy Daniels.
So Trump's expected to appear in court tomorrow, and then following that appearance, he's expected to return to Florida, where he will issue an address from his Mar-a-Lago estate. CBS News political correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns joins us now. Caitlin, what do we know about the former president's arraignment and what the next 30 hours will look like?
Well, Lana, I know we throw around the word unprecedented a lot when it comes to Donald Trump, but this really is the case here. We will see him, well, we did see his plane departing Mar-a-Lago. He's heading to New York tonight. We'll spend the night in Trump Tower, and we will see his court appearance tomorrow afternoon. He'll be processed like everyone else is in this kind of situation. But the thing that separates him from others who would be indicted facing these charges is that he will likely be accompanied by Secret Service. And that is because Secret Service follows him around everywhere, as they do for a former president. And of course, this is the first time in American history that a former president has been indicted and facing these criminal charges. So that will set him apart from anything we've seen in the past. So we know he's going to go through this process, and then he's going to return to Florida tomorrow, and he's going to have an event at Mar-a-Lago tomorrow evening, and we'll be looking to see kind of how he talks about it, whether and how he talks about it, especially in the context of his presidential campaign.
Right. And on that note, Caitlin, former National Security Advisor John Bolton yesterday told Margaret Brennan in Face the Nation that, quote, "I'm not worried about Alvin Bragg hurting Donald Trump. I'm worried about Alvin Bragg benefiting Donald Trump." How do you think this is going to impact the former president politically in his 2024 bid?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest question looming over all of this, aside from what will happen with this particular indictment, is what are the political implications for the former president, especially since he is running for president again. And I think there are two different tracks to kind of look at this. I think if we look at the politics of now with this specific indictment, with how Republicans are reacting, we are seeing Republicans rush to his defense on this specific case. They've been echoing his language, calling this a political endeavor. They've been, criticizing Bragg. You've seen the Republican Party really coalesce around him in this instance. But there's also this larger question of what it means for his third bid for the presidency. Do Republicans, rally around him for that? And I think that still is an open question. Yes, he maintains strong support among the Republican Party base. There is no one in the field currently, or those thinking about joining the field, that really come close to him in terms of the polling. Ron DeSantis is really the only one who is competitive so far. But when you talk to Republican primary voters, there's still a lot of time to go. Just because they are rallying around him now, does that mean that this is someone that they want to be the nominee? That is an open question. Yeah. He's leading the field so far, but he's also lost before, and Republicans are very conscious of that. So I think kind of looking at the politics of now and the politics of what's to come, I think you could have some different answers.
Well, that's an interesting point, Caitlin. And along that line, former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson is not one of the Republicans who has rallied around Trump. He actually announced that he's jumping into the race. And I want to play some of what he said and get your reaction on the other side.
I want to be able to speak to the Trump voters. I want to be able to speak to all of the party and say, this is the leadership that I want to provide. And I think that we need to have border security. I think we need to have a strong America.
You couldn't see yourself supporting Trump again?
I don't believe he should be the next leader of our country.
So, Caitlin, interesting how others have given their support to the former president. But we saw in this case, one of the GOP contenders not really even giving him an inch of support. So what do you think the campaign will look like for Hutchinson versus maybe some of the other big names that we're talking about?
Yeah, exactly right, Lana. He's kind of on his own island, isn't he, with those kinds of statements and the kind of campaign that he wants to run. I think very few people have heard of the former Arkansas governor, let alone primary voters who will be participating in Republican primaries. But he is certainly betting that there at least is some appetite for some kind of criticism of the former president, but more so someone who is focused on the current president. And that is also kind of the dilemma for Republicans as they are assessing this. Kind of going back to what we were talking about before, yes, they are supportive of the former president. Yes, they believe this is a political indictment, but don't they want to be talking about other things? Yes. Look at Nikki Haley. She's down at the border today trying to talk about border security and kind of stick it to President Biden. You have Republicans on Capitol Hill who were very eager originally at the start of this year to talk about their agenda now that they control the House of Representatives. So the case for Hutchinson, I think, is it's a very, very uphill climb. He's polling, not even barely recognizable. But there are so few people occupying that lane. In fact, there really aren't any. Those who could have, like a Larry Hogan or others, have bowed out of this race entirely. So that's kind of the bet. But again, when you look at the polling, Trump still commands such a strong support among the Republican Party base. And when you look at how the other candidates are handling Trump, they're not really criticizing him.
Yeah,
they're not
kid
really
gloves on those.
distancing. Exactly. So that's something to watch also as the indictment follows through, but also as these other investigations are looming as well.
Exactly.
Really
I think, on the political conversation, we'll have to see what happens with this case. We'll have to see what happens with those other cases, the classified documents, Georgia, January 6th. But yes, certainly there's been backtracking among some of those other Republicans and even right-wing media in supporting Trump now. Caitlin Huey-Burns, thank you so much.
Thanks, Kate.